Thank you for having me here tonight. And I want to tell y'all why you should vote yes on 4 on November 2nd. Amendment 4 was put on the ballot by Florida Hometown Democracy, a nonpartisan group of citizens who collected over 1 million petitions to get this important reform to Florida's voters. Here's what Amendment 4 will do. It will give local voters more control over the future of our communities. It will give voters veto power over comprehensive plan changes that your local commission approves. A comprehensive plan represents the community's consensus on how growth should proceed. Each plan is the product of lots of time, money, and effort. When someone requests a plan change, it means he or she doesn't want to live by the rules and doesn't want to live with the plan. The Commission's decision to approve a plan change is a political decision. It should be noted that there is growth built into these plans to accommodate every possible type of development: residential, commercial, public, industrial. I would like to note for you that over 10 years ago, a planner added up all the growth authorized by all the plans of both the municipal and county levels and determined at that time there was enough growth for over 100 million people. Since then, local commissions have approved even more development of every sort that could be built right now, but it's not being built because during the bubble, too much of everything was built. We saw our economy crash, and now we have hundreds of thousands of vacant units. So rubber stamping even more plan changes will dump more capacity on the market and will further depress property values. Under Amendment 4, your local commission will study and vote as usual on requested plan changes to the local comprehensive plan. But after it votes, if it approves the plan change, that plan change will then go on to the voters, typically at the next scheduled election. And then the voters will either approve or reject the plan change. Amendment 4 only applies to plan changes. It doesn't apply to variances, rezoning, or other types of development decisions. I did some research, and in Indian River County, there were 0 plan changes in 08, 5 in 09, and 2 in 10. So there was a total of 7 over the last 3 years. There were 3 plan changes in Vero Beach in 09, and last year there was 1. According to the Department of Community Affairs, there are typically about 4.2 plan change ordinances per year in any given community. So the voters are not going to be overwhelmed. But Amendment 4 may help you in Indian River County preserve your urban service boundary, which right now is at the mercy of 3 votes on your county commission. By its legal design, a referendum is a vote to approve or disapprove of the action taken by your local council. Opponents of Amendment 4, which consists of certain politicians, builders, speculators, etc., like say you're going to vote on 500 or 600 things. I can tell you definitively this is false. They like to point to towns where, in fact, the commission voted 1 time to overhaul the entire plan. So that means there was 1 vote by the commission, and then the voters would have 1 vote under Amendment 4. Why 4? Because voters are the ones who must live with the consequences of what happens, and we must pay the taxes. We deserve final say. We are already called upon to vote on bond questions, tax questions, charter amendments, referendum questions, and state constitutional amendments. These issues hit taxpayers right in their pocketbook. Comprehensive plan changes belong in the same category. Amendment 4 will give voters, taxpayers, the right to decide if new development projects that don't currently comply with their plan are worthwhile and affordable. We should get to vote before we're forced to pay. Amendment 4 will give voters a check on a system that hasn't been working very well for Floridians. Our opposition consists of politicians, real estate speculators, and lobbyists, the very folks who turned Florida's economy into a real estate Ponzi scheme and crashed our economy. The politicians want to keep their power, and the real estate speculators want to keep speculating. Our opponents like to admit that they do admit that the current system is broken, but they offer no solution. Instead, we see local governments continue to rubber stamp plan changes, and the legislature continues to degrade and diminish the little growth management we have.
It's been said that for every complex problem, there's a solution that is clear, simple, and wrong. And unfortunately, I think that's the case with Amendment 4. It's like taking a sledgehammer to a fruit fly. You're going to miss the fly and do a lot of damage in the process. It's why a truly historic coalition has formed to oppose Amendment 4. Not only business groups like the Florida Chamber of Commerce, but also planning organizations like the Florida Chapter of the American Planning Association, labor unions like the Florida AFL-CIO, the Florida League of Cities, Florida School Boards Association, Florida Association of Counties, and every editorial board that has weighed into this debate, 22 out of 22 so far. Even the editorial boards, which are often critical of growth, have said Amendment 4 won't address many of the problems that its authors intend to address. And while it may be well-intentioned, it's ultimately going to have unintended consequences. And those are what I want to focus on tonight, the unintended consequences and hidden costs of Amendment 4. A couple of weeks ago, Florida Tax Watch released a report on the costs and consequences of this measure. For those of you who know, Florida Tax Watch is an independent, nonpartisan, nonprofit research entity, which is designed to be a tax watchdog group. They said the cost of special elections alone on Amendment 4 could soar past $80 million statewide, but that the cost of litigation that would inevitably ensue from this measure could exceed $1 billion each year in our state. They base those projections not upon speculation, but upon real numbers that come from Florida's Department of Community Affairs. The DCA reports that there are roughly 8,000 changes each year on average to local comprehensive plans. Unfortunately, due to the size and scope of Amendment 4, all of them would appear on the ballot. Now, usually in these debates, we don't have an example. And in the case of Amendment 4, no other state in the country has adopted any measure like this. But we do have one case study. Some of you may be familiar with the small Pinellas County town of St. Pete Beach. They adopted a local version of this idea in 2006. And even editorial boards that are often critical of growth, like the St. Petersburg Times, the Tampa Tribune, and the Palm Beach Post, have opposed Amendment 4 because of what has happened in St. Pete Beach. Now, they heard the same promises Ms. Blackner made to you all tonight. They were told that Amendment 4 is really simple, and that it's just designed to give the people a say on growth. But that's not what Amendment 4 was designed to do, and that's not what happened in St. Pete Beach. See, they're a tourist town. Their economy relies very heavily upon visitors for its lifeblood, but hamstrung by their local version of Amendment 4, they were powerless to affect even common sense progress. The Tampa Tribune editorial board itself wrote that, hamstrung by this process, they could do little more than add an exterior coat of paint to many of the facilities in St. Pete Beach, because otherwise they would have triggered a comprehensive plan amendment. Such was the level of detail and minutia contained within their local comprehensive plan. So by June of 2008, the citizens have said enough. They wanted to update their comprehensive plan to encourage the redevelopment of vital historic centers in their historic downtown district. The voters decisively approved those changes in 2008, and within 24 hours of that election, they found themselves in court defending their vote against the very people who promised it to them in the first place. One of the co-authors and co-founders of Amendment 4 has been personally filing lawsuit after lawsuit in St. Pete Beach, all of it aimed at delaying or denying or in some way frustrating the manifest will of the people in St. Pete Beach. They say this idea is simple and that it's just designed to empower voters. What they really mean is you can have any opinion you want as long as you agree with them, because St. Pete Beach proves that Amendment 4 is designed to provide a new entry point for litigation after litigation. And that's exactly what's happened to the taxpayers of this tiny town, where they've now spent nearly $1 million in legal fees tied to their experiment in Amendment 4. We know that if this was projected on every community in Florida, that it would cost tens of thousands of jobs. The Washington Economics Group indicates that it would put almost 250,000 Floridians out of work and drain our economy by about $34 billion a year. And in these tough economic times, that's the last thing Florida needs, an amendment that's going to cost jobs, raise taxes, and make it more expensive to live in our state. Thank you.